Welcome to All Things Work. I'm your host, Ann Sparacco. Upskilling, reskilling. These are the words that now have a greater emphasis in wake of many AI and other workforce developments and advancements in the workplace. Today, we're diving in how to get employees engaged in this process and why some of us may actually be thinking about AI in the wrong way. Fear not, here to explore this topic and guide us on the future of talent is Ginnie Carlier, Chief Talent Officer of EY Americas. Welcome to All Things Work, Ginny.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're excited to have you. So, Ginny, EY Americas is a global IT services and consulting firm. You lead the region's efforts to create exceptional and transformative experiences for nearly 98,000 people across 31 countries. And you've even built and led high performing EY teams on 3 continents. But that's not really where you started your career. So, could you share us what led you into this role as well as the impact that role and EY has had on the organization?
Yeah, sure. If I not to take you through my whole career, but there was really I think a pivotal point in my career where I was just a few years away from making partner, and I was working in our Cleveland, Ohio office. And I had this opportunity to go to Silicon Valley to work on technology clients, and it was a whole new change for me. And I had to stop and really think and reflect. Like, I was leaving a place that I knew, I was leaving clients that I knew, I had a path to partner. But I'll tell you, I was very I had a mentor when I was younger, who gave me the best piece of advice. He's like, Ginny, a growth mindset is important, but challenge yourself and stretch yourself to have what he called an adventurous mindset, really, and be empowered by the unknown and be comfortable with the unknown. And honestly, because of that advice, I raised my hand and I said, yes, I'll go to Silicon Valley. And I ultimately made partner there. But it was also because of that mindset that I said yes to an opportunity to move to the Middle East. And honestly, it was when I moved to the Middle East and was working in that region that I really started to appreciate the importance of respecting everyone's backgrounds, really bringing people in who had different experiences. And when you harness all of that greatness and all that diversity, what it can bring to not only just the organization from a cultural perspective, but from the solutions that you offer your clients. And so it was really, that's when I realized that I wanted to be in a position at EY where I could bring that every day, that I could really drive myself to create an environment where people could feel like they belong, and then ultimately thrive. So, I always say that accounting gave me the foundation of, critical thinking, problem solving, really how to work with teams, how to build relationships. And then by having that experience, it led me to what is my true passion and really what drives me from a purpose standpoint.
Kind of makes me think of that movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey when he starts saying yes to
Mm.
things in life, things
Yeah.
start coming together and he starts to appreciate his life a little bit more. I
Yeah.
love that adventure mindset because, growth mindset as well. It's just growth and change. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable, but it's really what helps us get to where we need to be. So, based on what you've learned throughout your career, because you seem to have such a dynamic career with decades with EY Americas, what do you think has been the biggest shift in how organizations approach talent management, especially over the years that you've had this experience?
If I really kind of boil it down, when I think about those that are entering the workforce today, what they are expecting or needing from their employers is much different from what we just saw 5 years ago. I mean, this is the first time, and we've all heard this, but I think it's really important to reflect on. This is the first time we've had 5 generations in the workforce, and everyone is motivated differently. Everyone has different needs and wants because they're at various points in their career, very different points in their career. And so I think this is an opportunity for organizations to really think about their employee value proposition. Um, and that's important because I think we got to really start thinking about that EVP as a promise to our employees. And we will promise to provide this value to you in exchange for your engagement and for the work that you do for us, as an organization and for our clients. And so, in the past, employers had EVPs. And if I'm honest with you, they're probably just a narrative that's said on websites, probably were on some recruiting brochures. But now this has to be a promise that you can really signal that you're committed to. And when I look at what employees are really asking for, they want the ability to have agility in their careers. We used to be, we'd focus on the career ladder. Like, we want everyone to like climb the ladder, and that was going to be satisfying to people. But I like to analogize it that people are asking for the career playground. They want the ability to go and have opportunities and experiences and build their skills across that playground. And if they want to jump on that ladder again, they can, but then they can jump off and really explore other opportunities. And so an organization has to be ready to provide that. And then I think the other way that we're looking at it at EY too is that we have to provide what we're calling thrive time. And it kind of sounds a little catchy, but what we're really saying is we need to provide the space and the time for people to develop these skills that they're going to need now and in the future, give them the opportunity to do those things that they get energy from, like more corporate responsibility, focusing on their team or their personal well-being, and building their network. So giving them just that time and space to invest differently in them as a whole person.
I love that career playground. I absolutely love that. To add a personal note to that, I used to work in broadcast news, and especially when I was getting ready for my first job, I was told by so many of my mentors saying, "You have to know how to do everything in a newsroom, from producing to editing to writing to anchoring to reporting, all everything all and above." And I completely believe them. So when I went in, it was kind of like a career playground. I did work several positions, even though they weren't really my formal title. So, but that actually is what helped me advance my career, because I had all this skill set. I was able to handle the technology. I was able to do all the other things, and even manage projects. So I absolutely love that terminology. So
Yeah, I think it's a great visual for us to all kind of think about it, right? When we're thinking about what do we need to do and how do we deliver what people are asking for in the workplace now. So,
makes it more engaging too. You kind
yeah,
of feel like, you're a kid
exactly.
again. And so you talked about, the diverse talent pool, and SHRM's economic research function has been following the current labor shortage we're facing now, and it has recognized how the skills shortage is actually pushing organizations to rethink those traditional hiring methods. So how do you envision the workplace evolving over the next few years, particularly in terms of the skills and qualities employers will look for in a candidate most?
So you're absolutely right. I mean, the workforce and job roles, they're changing rapidly. And so we have to step away and get away from recruiting for perfection. Historically, we had a role that we were recruiting for, and we looked for that perfect resume where the skills and experiences lined up exactly with what we thought that role needed. And now we need to start recruiting for potential. And I think that's an important thing to focus on, because with the rapid change of roles, I mean, there are roles that we're recruiting for today that we actually don't even know what they are, and what the skills are truly going to be needed in the future. So we need to be looking for people who have curiosity, who are willing to invest in their learning and development, who are adaptable, who have core skills around critical thinking and communication. And so that's going to require organizations to look at, how do you recruit? What are the methods in which you're recruiting? And we're seeing a big shift in using gamification assessments. We're seeing behavioral interviews come back, and really talking to recruits about how would you approach a problem? How, if this, presenting them with a case study and really working with them to understand how they would think through that. And do they, so again, assessing their potential through kind of a more of a behavioral type of assessment process. And so I really see that shifting. And then when you think about just skills that are going to need to be in the future, you think about the impact of agentic AI, and that we've got to be hiring people who can adapt their skills to work on teams with humans and technology, to be able to look at an agent, like literally like a team member. And so then I think that, goes into like leadership skills, and how do we develop our leaders to be able to lead teams that are now made up of humans, agents, and have a team that's diverse, that's not the traditional like talent that you may have been hiring for the last 3 decades, right? So how do leaders manage those dynamics? And so I think it's exciting. I think this is, and I think it just opens up this whole new opportunity to tap into talent that we've never historically even thought about. So I think the opportunities are great.
And I love it too, and it also challenges, that four-year college, bachelor's, whatever degree, traditional, route that people take. We talk about skills first hiring here at SHRM quite a bit. Obviously, college degrees can be very important, but it's being challenged more, and people are looking more at those skill sets. So I love that you brought that up, and you also brought up, gamification. So tools like gamified assessments and skills simulations are driving really innovative workforce development. So, can you share more about what these tools are? Kind of what exactly are they, and how they identify gaps to accelerate learning among employees?
Well, I think the first thing to recognize is that there's not this whole like list or, shelves of tools that organizations can just go pick from. I mean, a lot of this is grassroots innovation, right? And really trying to figure out what resonates with the workforce you're attracting and what's going to, I think, benefit your organization long term. I mean, I think we would all agree, those entering the workforce today, I mean, hear the term digital natives, and they absolutely are. I mean, I just think of the conversations I have with my 16-year-old niece and kind of where I'm at in that spectrum of conversation versus where she's at. And they're just coming in, and their expectation is that they're going to work with humans, and they're going to engage their clients, and they're going to engage their tasks that they have to perform through technology. That's just expected. And so I think part of it is, being able to show those that are coming into workforce that you as an organization are really committed to that. And that's how you're evolving. And one of the things that we did recently was we developed what we call the Weverse, which is really the metaverse meets generative AI. And so it is a metaverse platform that's powered by Gen AI, and it provides our early career professionals the opportunity to engage through this Weverse and really challenge their curiosity skills, their agility skills, at the same time learning and developing and understanding the organization, and also actually making connections. It's amazing the connections and the networking that's been happening across the country on this platform, where just a few years ago, they probably would have never met that person. So these are the types of things that I encourage organizations to really try and test.
And I'm fascinated by the Weverse, because I know you were one of the people overseeing the launch of this with UI Americas, and can you give us kind of an example of maybe a successful outcome when somebody used Weverse? Because I guess I'm having trouble picturing it, but I get it, but my non-HR brain over here needs an image.
You kind of sound like me, because when I came up with the idea, I went to a bunch of people and I said, I have this vision. Can you make it happen? And, they did. No. So, I mean, one of the more recent examples that I actually was just talking to our CEO about just yesterday is that we have designed a space in the Weverse called Space for the Curious. And this is actually for our recruits on campus. And it provides this space, if you will, and it features an avatar named Eve. And Eve will be their interview coach. She'll be their coach through the whole recruiting process. So she'll even do interview simulations with the candidate and provide feedback to that candidate before they actually go through the formal interview with one of the EY professionals. And then she'll also, talk about EY's, culture and the benefits at EY. So she can even get really tactical with the recruit as well. And the other thing that I think is really cool, and I will admit that I got a little motion sickness because I think that's showing my age, but we have VR glasses that we will take on campus, and we have 12 of our offices are digital twins in the Weverse. And what the candidates can do is actually go in and see a day in the life in that office and get a real sense of what our culture is, see what life is like at EY when you spend time in our offices, and they can do that all virtually while they're sitting there on their campus career center, if you will. So it's been a real success, and we're going to be launching it more broadly this fall in this fall's campus recruiting season.
Wow, you just kind of blew me away with all of that information. I just that really painted such a solid picture and almost it really blew me away. I mean, that this is the pivotal time for people to upskill and reskill because, I even had a career coach once and, she was amazing. So I know that she's probably gonna be thinking about this as well, and that's incredible work. Very exciting developments happening there, and I'm sure a lot of people are working to follow suit. So when it comes to that human touch, SHRM at SHRM we talk about AI plus HI, which is human ingenuity equals ROI. We understand that you always need that human touch, but so how do you suggest like technology could be used to create that human touch, such as creativity, empathy, and teamwork among its forces, what we call human skills?
Yeah, I think if you think about the conversation around what the conversation that we've been having around AI, I think any executive would tell you that they believe there's going to be a moderate to significant change in almost all job roles in their organization in the next 3 years, 3 to 5 years. I think they would all admit that that's likely to happen. But I think what we need to be focusing on is the conversation to date has been about productivity. How much more productive is a person going to be? What cost savings are we going to get as a result of AI? And I really think we need to be pivoting that conversation to really the human experience. So what is the employee's experience going to be from that AI agent that you embed into the process, or that more efficient generative AI approach? And I think what we need to be doing is stepping back and really having the conversation with our employees in the standpoint of, this is what you bring, and think about what you bring from your skill set. And when you combine that with the knowledge and the output of what generative AI can give you, that's how much better your output is. And so really talking to them about how this is going to elevate them and almost, I think, probably speed up their career, if you will, in terms of what they're able to contribute. So I think that's one thing. I think we need to shift that conversation. I think we also, as leaders, need to show how we're using AI to continue to develop ourselves. Like I'll be a bit vulnerable here, and I'll share that we recently did upward feedback. So this is where anyone in the organization can provide feedback to me. And so you receive the reports, and we did this for everyone. And I put that feedback through EYQ, which is our private LLM platform. And I asked EYQ to take my feedback and summarize what actions could I take to improve on my leadership skills. And it took that feedback and it actually gave me actionable things, recommendations that I could take on to improve. It was almost like a career coach. And then I just kept having conversations with EYQ about, help me, where can I find, resources to action this recommendation? And it would provide the resources. So it was really a tool. So I think getting to that sort of vulnerable empathy, sort of, how you can use these tools just to, better all of your skills, not just your technology skills, but also sort of those non-technical skills as well.
Yes, I love that, really kind of moving away from just how AI can make us more productive, but really how it can advance other aspects of our career and our personalities with our career. I love that so much. So that's a good way to open our minds a little bit more, especially as we see more advancements or as we think about how it would play a role in our workplace. So when it comes, you mentioned virtual reality a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't get dizzy talking about it. I promise we won't make you dizzy. But what advantages do you see in VR and other AI platforms for hands-on training, particularly in developing both technical and other human skills? like adaptability and problem solving?
I think probably the best way to answer that question is kind of with an example. I mean, we talked about the work that we've been doing in the Weverse and sort of what we've been trying there in terms of success. The other area, we took what we call the Academic Research Center. So it's EY-ARC. And this center has been around for, years. And what it's focused on is helping universities and colleges develop sort of curriculum for their students, really. So to be a supplement for, professors to really tap into on particular subjects. And recently we said, well, what if we did a simulation? Like, how would that maybe help students learning and give them more insight to be job ready when they enter a career in professional services? So we actually tried a simulation process using generative AI where we focused on two things: technical skills and non-technical skills. So we actually simulated an audit for accounting students, and we asked them to engage with a client, to do an interview process with a client. And then the simulation was able to give them feedback on their interview skills. They were able to provide recommendations on how they could have improved the question to get more information out of the client. They provided potential differences on how you could follow up questions you could have applied. So it really gave them that skill set of really kind of critical thinking, problem solving, client relationships, the art of questioning. And then we furthered the simulation by actually taking a core technical piece of the audit and asking them to work through the problem. And we kind of threw different challenges at them along the way, to see how would
Wow.
you react and like how could you apply your technical knowledge to that particular issue of the audit. And so, and again, there was feedback at the end of it. So again, that's another way that we're sort of using VR simulated learning to really help upskill people. And this was these were to candidates, these were to university students who hadn't even entered the workforce yet. So we were getting them almost job ready before they even started. So
You literally, you kind of just answered my follow-up question. It was a little one off, but I was curious because, do you foresee, more universities trying to engage with this type of technology because it prepares emerging professionals so well, or it could possibly do that as long as they do it the right way.
yeah, no, absolutely. I see that. And there's a real interest. And, the simulation that I just talked about, that was actually developed, alongside some of our visiting professors to make sure that we did get the curriculum of the simulation right so that it was really teaching their students what they needed to learn in that particular class, along with, like I said, getting them job ready. So yeah, it's been a great collaboration, and I see a lot of interest coming from universities around this topic.
Right. Our president and CEO, Johnny C. Taylor Jr., has really
Yeah.
talked about the vital importance of universities kind of keeping up with
Mhm.
what's changing in the workforce because they are, the ones that are creating these individuals and getting them ready for
Yeah.
the skills that are needed. So I love that we brought that into, the university, the college areas, and even trade schools. That's definitely interesting to learn. And so, you know, there's a lot of people, even from universities of all ages, or in different parts of their career. Like you said, everybody does things differently. Some people, and we got 5 different generations right now in the workforce, and it's only growing more and more as people choose phased retirement, so they're still got their foot in the door, and then more emerging professionals are coming from those universities. So how does EY use the current tools that we've talked about to reskill employees across different age groups in human skills like curiosity and adaptability?
Yeah. So it's a great question. And I think you really laid it out there with recognizing everyone's at a different point in this journey, right? So those that we're bringing into the workforce off of campus right now, like I said, they're digital natives. They're used to it. They're expecting it, right? I think they may not know what to do if there wasn't technology available to them for them to use. And So one of the things that we've been doing at EY, I mean, as AI and the changes that it's having to what we're doing and how we're serving our clients and what we're expecting of our leaders, is really trying to help everyone assess where are you at on this journey. So making sure that we're meeting everybody where they're at. So we actually developed what we call EY generative AI persona learning, and that's really helping each person individually assess where are you at on that journey. Like where, like, someone like me who probably 8 months ago couldn't raise their hand and say I use Chat GPT. Where are you at? And then start your learning there, right? And so that like we can then eventually get to a place where everyone is at more of a level playing field around this topic. We've also really started to introduce the concepts of curiosity and adaptability and resiliency and into those learning as well, right? To make sure that our leaders especially recognize how important that is, right? Like your ability to be resilient, your ability to adapt to the change. And then also, we talked about it earlier, how as a leader now do I lead differently, knowing that I have a much more dispersed workforce, and I now have these agents that I can't really see or touch or but like how do I use them most productively? So one of the other areas we've leaned in really hard on is thinking about communication skills, because the better you communicate, both written and verbally, the more you're going to get out of generative AI. So really doubling down on how important that is to, the successful outcomes that you can have by using that technology.
And I love that. Yeah, I love that you touched on that, especially with the communication part, because what you give to Chat GPT or other forms of AI is what you get in return at the end of the day. And so let's leave with this final thought. You touched on this a little bit, but how could organizations really tailor programs so they resonate with that diverse learning style amongst the diverse staff and workforce while fostering a culture of inclusion? Because everybody, deserves to feel a sense of belonging in their workplace.
I think that's an excellent question. And I do honestly believe that probably the success is going to be dependent on what that last point you made around creating this sense of inclusion. And when I think about EY, we are so proud of our apprenticeship model, and and how everyone, all of our leaders see it as a core responsibility to develop those that are on their teams. And we're moving into this world where we're going to have to really be focused on reverse apprenticeship, reverse apprenticeship model. And so instead of being a pyramid anymore, it's really going to have to be a diamond almost. And how, and those leaders who can embrace that new form of apprenticeship model that really kind of goes both ways is going to be incredibly important, I think, to the success. And those are the leaders that I think are going to lead the highest performing teams in the future.
I love that. Thank you for leaving with that wonderful insight. And thank you, Jenny, for sharing your experience and your expertise and guiding us through this and working to help us think of AI in different ways. We appreciate and the examples you provided. They were really great. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Had a great time. All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode of All Things Work. We have new content each week with a newsletter and the latest research on these big topics we are discussing. So head to shrm.org/allthingswork for more. And don't forget to follow us on social media. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.
SHRM.